Hey everyone, Damien the Kung Fit Coach here. Today I'm going to be talking about setting goals. Now, it's really important because it's February, January is finally over, and apparently by now 80% of us have actually given up on our New Year's resolutions. If you haven't, well done, keep at it, but you're still going to want to watch this because I'm going to set out a way to make sure that you actually stick to those for the entire year. And I'll even be talking about a few things that I never really see anyone else talking about. Let's get to it. Now, I think one of the reasons that most people probably fail, aside from the fact that January is a bit of a rubbish month, especially in the Northern Hemisphere, is that their resolutions are often a bit vague and woolly, so it becomes very difficult to stick to them. Now, we can't change where we've been, we can't change the past, but we can change the direction of travel and ultimately, therefore, our results. And really, it's all about goals. No, not that kind of goal, life goals, and most importantly, smart ones. Now, people talk about smart goals quite a lot, and it's quite simply because it works. But there's something that people never really touch on, and that is context. Now, the relevancy part of smart kind of ties in a little bit, but I want to go a lot deeper. Context is essentially anything in your life that might directly or indirectly affect your progress. How much time do you have? How does this fit into your wider long-term goals? How do all of these goals come together to build the life that you want to lead? And what about other commitments that you have? These are all important factors. So first, we need to set the vision of what we want our life to be like. Really picture how you want your life to be, all the little details. Next, consider where you are now. What can't you change about the situation? What can you change? And what do you not want to change? Even if that's just like spending time with your friends, that can still be something that is important to you. Now we know where we are and we know where we want to be. Future Damien here, well, future for him, past for you still. If you saw my Lian Huntren video a few weeks ago, you know that originally I planned to release this one at the beginning of February, but life got in the way. It happens. So I looked at what I actually had time for, looked at what else I had scheduled in the coming weeks, and I readjusted. That is the importance of context. Now we know where we are and we know where we want to be, we can set the goals that we need to transition from one to the other. Now at this point you've probably got more goals that encapsulate that endpoint than you could possibly do at once. Not just because of time, but because of the focus required. So list out all of those goals that are going to get you to your end life, then pick the top 5 and make at least a few of them things that really impact how you feel about yourself and how you feel about your life. Supposedly Warren Buffett used this technique, sometimes called the 25-5 rule, to meet his goals. So it's probably a good bet that it works. Once you've got these 5, write them out on a new sheet of paper and put the first bit away in a drawer and don't look at it again until you're done with these first 5. Don't dabble, don't plan, don't think about them. They might be really important to you, but if you're working on 25 goals, you aren't working on any. So get those 5 done, then we'll move on and get another 5 done. Okay, so we've got our top 5 priorities. Now it's time to make them SMART. SMART is an acronym for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Each of these is important for effective goal setting, and maybe you've already heard about this idea, but even so, it might be worth revisiting and making sure that you're applying it properly. If your goal isn't specific, you will never meet it. How do you know when you're there if you're not properly defining the endpoint? Compare I want to lose weight with I want to lose 5 kilograms. Next, your goals need to be something that you can actually measure. That way you know you're making progress towards it. These measurements can be relatively loose, like taking progress pictures, or it can be really specific, like weighing yourself, tracking how much weight you can lift, or winning a particular competition. Next, your goal needs to be achievable. This is given time constraints, other things that you have going on, our context, or even just physics. You can't just say that You want to earn £1 million by the end of the year if you're currently earning nowhere near that and have no pathway to get there. You also can't jump as high as your house, no matter how hard you try. This doesn't mean don't be ambitious, just be realistic. Next, we need to determine if our goal is relevant to our overall life aims. Look back at that life you imagined. Does this goal really help you get there? If you want to get down to 10% body fat and look shredded, but you also want to compete as a sumo wrestler, well, those goals aren't compatible. Finally, your goals should be time-bound. Essentially, this means that you need to put a date by which you'll have achieved your goal. It's okay to miss that date or adjust it, more on that later, but it can't be something that you continually push back or that you never define, or else you'll just never have the sense of urgency to make it happen. You also need to allow time for all of your goals and everything else in your life. Having considered all of this, it's important to now balance it against your wider context. Now remember, motivation is killed by unrealistic or vague goals, but being too ambitious in your goals can lead to burnout, which means you'll never achieve them. So hopefully by now you've got those 5 goals nailed down. Now it's time to write them out again as SMART goals, so that 1, it cements them in our brain, and 2, we can pin them up on the wall as a reminder. Here I'm writing down what might be the best example of a SMART goal for the 21st century. Learn how to wear a mask so that it covers my mouth and nose 100% of the time by the time I leave the house on the 12th of February. Now, let's break this down. It's specific. I want to learn how to wear a mask over my mouth and my nose, and to be successful at this 100% of the time. It's measurable. Is the mask covering my nose? Yes or no? Is it covering my mouth? Yes or no? Is it achievable? Well, it must be. I've seen lots of people managing it, and I don't think they have any particular resource or genetic advantages that allow them to do it, and not me. I mean, I have a big nose, but I can just get a bigger mask. Is it relevant? Well, right now, I doubt there are many things more relevant. Finally, it's time-bound. Not just once, but twice. I've put in by the time I leave my house next. But to avoid me pushing this back all the time, just by not leaving the house, I've put a date on it as well. So you should have a good idea of what a SMART goal is now, so make sure you leave a comment down below about what your goals for the year are. Okay, let's move on and talk about the second thing that most people don't really talk about in relation to goals. That's accountability. It's very easy to give up on something if you've nothing riding on it. Studies have shown that people are more motivated by losing something than they are by gaining something. That could be the respect of someone that you've told you're going to achieve your goal. It could be a holiday for you and your wife that you've booked for when you achieve your goal, but she's going to cancel it if you don't. Having a system to track accountability each time you are meant to work on your goal can also really help. Whether that's just a tick in a box on a calendar or photo evidence to a friend. The last thing, which I see pretty much no one talking about except in the fitness world, but which applies equally to any goal, is planning. You need to plan how you're actually going to reach that goal. So take your big goal, divide it up into small elements that are going to drive you towards that end point. Now, these could be divided by theme or by difficulty. Say if you want to do a planche push-up, you might first do some normal push-ups. But before that, you might do incline push-ups. So each step is building on the last, but driving you ever closer to that end point. Next, you need to think about your timelines. So start with the end in mind and work your way backwards from there. If you don't do this, you'll never know if you're on track until it's too late. So make sure you plan each step out so that you've got a nice structured timeline that will get you to your goal at the point that you want to reach it. Next, context again. Achieving your goals might make you really happy, but equally, it might not. If other parts of your life suffer because you're spending so much time working on your goals, then you might not end up being as happy as you thought you were going to be at all. So make sure you plan for some unstructured time to unwind and some time for things to go wrong, and even just time to hang out with your friends, do things that actually you really enjoy. That is really important. Finally, you need to have a system for dealing with the things that try and trip you up, because life happens. A great way to do this is to think of tasks as either important or not, and either urgent or not. You can visualize this as a grid. If something is unimportant and not urgent, bin it straight away. Though do remember context and the need for wider well-being. If it's important but not urgent, then file it for later. If it's important and urgent, like fixing a hole in your roof, get on it right now. The last and most difficult section is urgent but not important. These are things that scream at you to get them done, but really they aren't worthy of your time in most cases. It might be an email alert popping up, it might be a flash sale, it might be a task that you've been asked to do by a certain date, but actually it's really not that important. You also need to evaluate and revise your plan to meet your goals. Sometimes progress is faster than expected, sometimes it's slower. Say you are on track to lift 100 kilos by June, but now you're not going to make it. You could drop it down to 90, you could push the date back to August, or you could squeeze in some more training to make sure you still make it. Any of these are fine, as long as you're honest about where you are and what you need to do to get to your goal. Now, it's important that you don't keep changing it over and over, because that'll essentially make your goal meaningless. But with some careful adjustment, you can still keep the value of the goal and avoid disappointment and ruining your motivation. Me again, remember how I had to revise my plan? I definitely had a smart goal, everything was set up to be okay, but context, life got in the way, so I revised my plan, didn't let it get me down, I just accepted it, moved on, and found a way forward. That's why we've got to evaluate and revise. Thanks, future Damien. This is a really good point. It's worth having a system in place for those things that are going to come along and try and trip you up, because, as he said, life happens. Finally, throughout all of this, remember not just to measure yourself against your end goal, but against your past self. See the progress you've made. Let that drive you forward, keep you improving, whether you can meet your end goal or not. You might reach for the stars, but getting to Mars wouldn't be so bad either. Well, that's it from me. It's been a bit of a long one, but hopefully you'll find this really useful in setting and, most importantly, achieving your goals in 2021. So if you have found this useful, give that like button a good hard Marbu punch, hit subscribe, and as I said before, let me know down below in the comment section what your SMART goals are. Thanks guys, I'll see you next time.